May I open with a question? Are you your thoughts? You may answer nay, for your thoughts pass before you as a parade, as a kaleidoscope of the imagination, and oftentimes they are invaded by the thoughts of others, thoughts clashing upon thoughts. Hence, it is to the spirit of man that we dedicate our outpouring of solemn strength this evening, invoking for you all that light which feeds the very soul of man and brings to him the solace of the ages, that he may become the repository of all that is infinite, of all that is loveliness, of those parading thoughts that are the thoughts of the mind of God, of the mind of the ages, for his is all of that. He transcends all time and space from the beginning unto the ending of each age, and continues to pour out the sweet anointing of the water of life and the fragrance of the soul. There are times that it may seem as though the anointing is poured out upon a rock, that men do not receive or understand the high dignity which we bring, the vestments of immortality, that which enables man to control and to master his thoughts and his feelings. Individuals from time to time are mastered by the thoughts and feelings of others. But the time has come when the students of the great law should summon that full measure of devotion which will enable them to take some control over their thoughts and determine that they will steer the course of events in order to coincide with God's will, that the beautiful passions of the great white brotherhood may become a reality in this time of God control. For effective God control is the movement of divine love. It is the impulse of divine love that is actually implanted within the heart of man. And by the power of divine love, man is able to move aside and part the veil of the future, seeing as God sees and understanding as God understands. He comes apart then from his thoughts and summons the means to do so. He stands back, and watching the parade of thoughts, he may say to the flock, "Go thou here and go thou there." And behold, the thoughts are under the control of the master. For the master within can express through the children of the light, bringing them their magnificent God freedom, the freedom which their souls crave and which the whole earth seeks but knows it not. Have you ever stopped to think for a moment yourselves about that? Well, beloved ones, the quick-witted ones think about that, and those who are with us think about that, and the angelic hosts do it without even thinking about it, because they feel innately and within themselves that they ought to be an individualized focus of the light, a flame, whether tiny or large, that observes passing events and masters them. And sometimes it so happens that that mastery becomes automated. It is because the spirit within man is in control. The soul controls the form. And thus, a master of nature, of being, a divine master is born within the tiny chalice of individuality. And oh, how precious this is, beloved ones, summoning the fruits of the Spirit for the ages, and the passions of the Christ reborn, kindled once again, cycling all over again, send those tiny shivers up the spine of man that enables him to say, God lives, and I live also. For man can only live by identifying with the Spirit in a most permanent way. For all of the passing fancy of the times is a continually moving arc of consciousness that floods in and out through periods of sleepfulness and wakefulness. Man must learn then that he can become the divine master, that there is great fruit to be obtained for oneself and for the planet in a larger sense by reason of summoning that God control of which I speak. And in the name of holy freedom, beloved ones, I say to you, is it not almost over time that man should summon the fruit of freedom? For while a little knowledge may be a dangerous thing, as some have said, a little more knowledge gives each individual some sense of goal-fittedness that he may seek and may understand the beauty of the currents of the Christ that flood forth within him when he can summon the wisdom and the strength to stop the vicious flow of mortal, humanizing thoughts that devour and consume the spirit temporarily, putting to rest those beautiful cosmic impulses that God longs to see surge within the force field of your consciousness. For consciousness is a blessed thing. It is a chalice with wings that may indeed fly into the highest atmosphere and be a succinct example to all. How wondrous is the power of beautiful example. And yet, strangely enough, viewing other individuals from man's own lofty position, he often finds fault with his fellow men, with his peers, and criticism and condemnation and judgment, of which I have spoken so often, continues to be the bane of mortal existence. If instead, beloved ones, of holding to a fiat of criticism, man would instead summon the God power of his being for all that he meets, that he sees may, according to his highest judgment, commit errors, and free those individuals from the bond of those errors. He would render not only a service unto them and to me personally, but also unto himself. For by karmic merit, the moment that he himself found himself in the sloughs of life and passing through the same valley of the shadows of imperfection, another would hold it for him. And if they did not, then a just cosmos would see that somewhere a compensatory action would take place, bringing to all that beautiful fruit of the Spirit, which is the fruit of the brotherhood. In the name of holy wisdom, beloved ones, what is the meaning of Christ's truth, if it is not brotherhood? And if it is brotherhood, is it not a proper action that all learn to be their brother's keeper, that all learn to think the highest thoughts of their fellow men? For by creating thought matrices that are thought matrices of light, that are energized by the Holy Spirit, that are fragrant as a green bough, man is able to overcome those old and decaying, dried-up concepts that, like a dried-up bough, are fit only for the burning. We are concerned with your freedom, and you are concerned with what will happen in 1972. I tell you tonight that that is up to you and to your fellow men. True it is that there are many reminiscences gathered round about, reminiscences whose old and crusty nature is verily invested with much of the stuff which you yourselves have made and your peers. Now, we come, and the lords of karma come, to make the best out of it all, and try to arrange and rearrange the old furniture within the rooms to present a new appearance to man. Will you help us? Will you help us by creating less debris, by creating less passions for darkness and a greater passion for light? Well, I tell you, you can expect little help from the world who simply read in the newspapers just what has happened yesterday and what may happen tomorrow. And being susceptible to these passions of darkness, they are easily moved by those fashions of the passing time into those slots, those special slots of man's classification of others. And they find themselves without the wisdom to actually free themselves from the burrow pits and the slime pits and all of the dark traps that are laid for the human race. The affairs in Pakistan and in India are indeed fraught with much destructivity toward the human race. And the situation now taking shape in Israel is even more dangerous than that which threatens from Red China. But mankind should understand that the whole human race could very easily solve their problems by casting off their own sense of human greed and personality identification with nations in a jingoistic sense. They ought to recognize the solemn nature and beautiful nature of the Prince of Peace and the science of true cosmic justice. They ought to understand that God, who made of one blood all nations for to dwell upon the face of the earth, created a cosmic brotherhood long ago, to which we all subscribe and do render our very best services unto men. I cannot stand here tonight and tell you that the ascended masters have not served this race, this world, these nations, yea, the whole family of nations, in seeking to envision that full measure of cosmic culture which does bring about all of the elements of the golden age into manifestation. Now in your time, right now, you have all those elements available to you. Elements of a science that can free the world from drudgery. Elements of a culture that can bring to mankind the awareness of what they ought to do with their time. Elements of spiritual teaching which will free men from the bane of karma and pain and bring them to those spiritual meditations and those spiritual realizations which are the fruit of the ages. Do you see? Well, beloved hearts, it is up to the world verily. But inasmuch as they do not know what they are doing, so much has been brought to the ascended master students to give them what amounts almost to a status of a parliamentar, one who arbites for the entire world. To you then who believe this night, there is given the objective energies, the practical manifestations of serving all mankind by holding the immaculate concept within your heart for all. True it is that there are many dangerous forces manifesting in the world and shaping strange consequences for mankind, which may bring pain, death, and agony to untold millions, possibly to the whole planetary body. Yet, as in the time of the French Revolution, we continue faithfully to serve the cause of the freedom of humanity. We want mankind to be able to enjoy the fruits of the ages. We want them to be able to enjoy the wonderful scientific achievements which have been builded, which are being builded, which come to individuals, in some supplanting the things of the Spirit, and in others being a useful tool to serve humanity in this time when man is becoming more godlike in a physical sense the enjoyer of all the beauty and strength of life, but at the same time, in a spiritual sense, is in a state of confusion, with many signposts pointing upward, downward, sideways, and every way, directing mankind to the same place, ostensibly, but in reality serving to confuse their mind. They say, which way shall I go? How shall I exist? What can I do that I may be saved? The old perennial question asked of the great Master Jesus has been asked of all of us from time to time. Individuals are concerned with their future, oftentimes more than they are with their past. And yet their future is actually a reflection of that past. And this they ought to understand in the present moment. For here now, at the very cusp of the new year, mankind are being given a little glimpse of the dangers and potentials that face them. And they are being reminded solemnly of the wonderful gifts that are given to them. They're being asked to enlist in the cause of the golden age. I have just stepped up the heat of transmutation. Do not be alarmed. I want you to understand that I came here this night to perform, perforce, a specific action of the Spirit. And I am sure that most of you are aware of the fact that the sinister force desires to employ every tactic at its command in these last days of the age to deter mankind from accepting his great divine cosmic fiats, to disturb him in one or more of his four lower bodies, and to prevent him from attaining to that God magnificence which, I assure you, each one of you ought to embrace as you would a divine lover. For these gifts are gifts of the Spirit. We say then to those angels of our band, to those forces of light over which God has given us power, behold, the unfailing light of freedom. It shall rule the world. It shall stand supreme within the human heart as the emancipator of all life, and it shall bring all life into the fold, point by point, even those who may resist because they do not thoroughly understand just what we are doing. You may say to yourself, this sounds a bit contrary, for I have always believed that mankind have free will. Well, beloved ones, they do up to a point. But you should understand that we have certain rights, that God has certain rights, that heaven has certain rights, and these rights are the creation of the thought forms in the very ethers itself that will literally exalt the divine plan in the eyes, in the consciousness, from the skies into the being of man, summoning the elect to the great feast, the marriage supper of the Lamb. This has been so called. And it is in reality summoning all humanity to the great union, the cosmic union of man and God, to the feast of the Lamb, in other words, to the feast of holy innocence. Mankind through the years have been involved in much that is not innocent. Now then, we ask you to come to the cosmic games, to attend the spiritual efforts of the ages as we begin to unfold the cosmic drama to the eyes of all. We say, take heart, for behold, the light that shines is stronger upon the mountain tops and in the glory of the sun than ever before, enhanced by the loveliness and devotion of many. It is a glow ray of eternal strength. Your own mighty I Am presence will attest to this. For your own mighty I Am presence knows full well that one day, many today that you do not even believe will come to the light, will gloriously turn away from the darkness and toward the light with all their heart. And they will desire with all their heart to serve our cause and they will desire with all their heart to give themselves. It is almost as if the ancient prediction was coming into manifestation. They shall say to the rocks, fall upon us. So mankind, after having rejected the light, the never-failing light of God, for so long, will suddenly turn to the very rocks, the manifestation of nature, and say, fall upon us. In other words, crush us by the hand of nature into the heart of God. This means that people will realize at last that many of the goals that they have formerly objectivized will have no meaning to them, that only spiritual goals will be of interest and concern to them. Yet they may, if they are not careful, strike a time in the age when not only will prophecy fail, but all of the contacts with God that are not already forged within the light of a man's being will be withdrawn in the obscure night of the whole planetary body ere it rise completely into the golden age. And in that moment of indecision, when there seems to be no certitude of divine intervention or no fashion of the passions of eternity of the heart and love of God for man, then suddenly those who have walked in darkness for so long will decide that they will turn to the light, but the door shall be shut. They have not bought oil for their lamps. The bridegroom shall have come, and there shall be indeed the gnashing of teeth upon the planetary body, as some throughout the entire period of that which remains of their embodiment upon a planetary body shall come at last before them and say, now you cannot buy oil. Now you cannot summon suddenly, just because you want it, the light, for you have walked in darkness, and you must stand upon that which you have externalized. Do you see? It is utterly important that you do see. I want you to understand that it is not enough just simply to say, we are friends of Saint Germain. The time to say it is now, to stand up for God and be counted as those who will direct your attention unto spiritual and luminous orbs at the time when the whole human race per se, except the few, are actually being counted. If you stand up for us now, if you stand up for the God presence within yourself now, well, beloved ones, I want you to know that will also be a count for you in the future. Have you heard it said that those who deny me before men, I will deny also before my Father, as a statement of the Lord Christ? Do you understand the meaning of that statement? It means in the little clinches of life that you are able to decide for yourself that you want to be one of those who is devoted to the cause of freedom for the planetary body. Not just because you want your own freedom. Of course you want it. But you want others also to have it. And because you want them to have it, you give it unto others. And you call for the development of other lives in a spiritual renaissance, in a rising culture of the ages, in the sunburst of the cosmic flame of a golden age, produced because you worked and served with us in that production. There are always many who, as some have said in spiritual movements, desire to toast their shins upon the fires of others. Let us then remind you that whereas this may be a good and worthy pastime, it will not serve very effectively when you are asked by the lords of karma to show your light. To show your light means to show your light. And it is to your light that I am dedicated this night in cosmic service. I want you to understand then that we are going to perform an inner spiritual exercise in the realization of your own mighty I Am presence. Whether or not you are successful in the measure of externalizing this exercise will depend upon you. For mankind often go here and there to behold Christ, without understanding that the kingdom of heaven is within them. I am concerned then tonight that the fullest opportunity be given unto all, that opportunity be a consummate opportunity of your own God presence, as your God presence seeks to externalize in you for all time a focus of eternity. Do you understand what I have said? You have always entered most easily into the natural time sense that surrounded you. You say it is 10 o'clock and it is so. You say it is 12 o'clock and it is so. But now I say to you, develop the eternal sense as a part of the God consciousness within yourself. Out of the God consciousness, out of the wondrous light, will come then into manifestation a divine being. O wondrous light of eternal truth, thou light in which there is no error, shine thou into the human heart. The miracle, the ascended master miracle of the cosmic law, the fulfillment of the longing of the heart of God and the longing of the heart of man. Surround all with a beautiful golden crown with 12 stars, jewels of perfection that guard and watch the hours. Let them understand that to wear this crown is to be indeed a master of their own destiny. Let them understand that they need not of necessity wait for their ascension in order to begin the manifestation of cosmic law, for cosmic law lives within you now, and now is the time when men and women should take their dominion over the earth, the fulfillment and anchoring of a cosmic law within their very being of beings. Beloved ones of the infinite light, the heart of God literally pants for man because there is a dearth of ascended beings now moving up the scale. They are only a few, and we would have many. We want to increase the rate of ascensions upon the planetary body and worthiness for the ascension. Is this wrong? Have we erred because we have apprehended this thought for you? I do not think so. And consequently, I wish to assure you that I am going to ask the lords of karma to drop my mantle around your shoulders, that you may wear a portion of my burden for 30 days and a portion of my joy. When you come to know them both, I think you will understand what it means to enter into the heart of Saint Germain. You will understand the fiery Maltese cross, and you will understand that it is time that you enter that heart in order to receive those necessary strengthenings of cosmic purpose whereby a literal master is born amongst men. Oh yes, a very ordinary appearing individual, but one that nevertheless will be a master of his destiny for 30 days or a slave. It depends upon you, for born out of the consecration of your own heart and the fires of your own heart will come some of the realization. Now I am Saint Germain, and I am making a cosmic fiat. And that fiat saith that all who desire to reject my mantle may do so freely. I give them permission. That all who desire to accept my mantle may see for themselves within the next 30 days as to whether or not they will either benefit by it or be maimed momentarily by it. For those of you who have a certain weight of karma may find that that karma may outpicture itself momentarily in order to spin you into gold by the chastening of the Spirit. Others of you who have made certain cosmic developments may find that suddenly, whereas you were soaring before, now you feel a little of the weight of the world upon your shoulders, a burden of the ascended Master's consciousness. Oh yes, a burden of light, but nevertheless a burden for humanity, that because you will effectively decree yourselves free from that burden, you will lift the weight of the world's darkness and increase the scope of light's manifestation upon the planetary body as it has not been done for myriad years before. You may say, how can this be? You are Saint Germain. You are able to lift the burden, and now you expect us to do it. Well, beloved hearts, I am multiplying myself. And in this multiplication, I am giving you the opportunity to earn that cosmic blessing which otherwise would have been my own. And I can assure you that there is a cosmic law and cosmic laws aplenty that support the actual giving of my mantle to those of you who wish to wear it. Of course, it will increase a certain measure of your power to do good, your power to invoke, your power to raise mankind. But we will see how these many Saint Germains can affect the world in a dynamic manner. For I promise you that I will retain the full power that I have and still give the mantle to you. How this is done may not be clearly understood by you all at once, but one day when you wear the mantle which I wear and carry the scepter in your hands, you will see that this is a divine prerogative of every ascended being, to give a certain measure of his grace by the cosmic law of assumption unto others, that they may wear the garments that I wear and do the deeds which I do, and gather the beautiful mantle flame which I also give to the world, a mantle flame of freedom. Freedom must increase upon the planetary body. War and struggle and confusion and darkness have not affected the world in a benign manner. But you can, for you are contemporaries of all that lives. You are embodied upon the planetary body, and I tell you truly, that to have the gift of life, to actually walk the earth with those embodied here amongst the living, is a glorious opportunity which I am giving to each of you who will accept it this night. Your free will shall be the deciding choice, and those of you who will stand up for the light which I offer you will understand it. And you will accept it, and you will help me to lift the burden from the world and make 1972 a stepping stone, as has been predicted, of infinite cosmic possibilities unto mankind. Then we shall see as to whether or not the forces of light can roll back the forces of darkness. Have we not stayed the hand of the dark cycle for a period? And has it not blessed the earth with countless magnificent attributes, even in spite of the negatives that do manifest in the world? Well, then, I think also that by the glorious opportunity given to the keepers of the flame fraternity and those of you who are willing to accept the mantle of the flame, we shall also establish now in the year 1972 those glorious hosts of light in cosmic action who will work for God to change the world by the inner power of Saint Germain. This is no desecration of my flame, I assure you. How can that be? Do you suspect for one moment that you have that power? I tell you, nay. You only have the power if you wear the mantle of Saint Germain to intensify and increase my flame. And I am sure that you will do that when you stop to think about it. And when I came to you tonight, early in my speech, I proclaimed to you the mastery over passing thoughts. Well, begin the practice of that right now. Won't you do it, please? Will you understand what it means when you begin to do it? Will you understand what it will mean to you and to the whole planetary body? For it will mean that people, individuals, will not be able to cast their negatives before you and destroy your peace of mind. You will be the master of your own thoughts. And then you see very little criticism can emanate from the students of the light, because they will be wearing the mantle which I wear. They will be holding the scepter of power in miniature in their own force field. And when responsibility is so distributed, I am quite sure that it will change a great deal of the balance of power upon the planetary body. For there are so many wonderful people upon the planetary body in embodied form. There are little children now uttering prayers that are so sublime and so sweet that they almost move the lords of karma to set aside certain aspects of the cosmic law, which we would never do, dear ones, if we were implored by adult individuals of hardness of heart. But now we find that these tiny children in their prayers have somehow or other picked up in the world or in the world thought those beautiful concepts that are like threads of gold on the pages and tapestry of history. This is God magnificence. I say unto you, except ye become a little child, ye cannot enter in. Do not fear to become little children in your consciousness, for thus shall the weight of the world be lifted, because the will of God can be done by those who are unsophisticated, by those channels of knowledge communicated to them which tell them that it cannot be done. We know that it can be done, and this is why we do it. Will you know with us why it can be done? And will you do it? Let not the opportunity pass, as so many have. how silently is the deliverance of the Word. Here in the Grand Teton are assembled many magnificent beings of light and beings of loveliness, those to whom only the realities of God exist. And as our consciousness is raised on high unto the vibratory level of the Spirit, we behold at last the beauty of the cosmic cloud tinged with gold coming down out of heaven as an unrolling scroll. Behind the cloud is an unearthly light. A sudden splendor fills the air, as though a bolt of blue lightning had peacefully descended through the waiting air to cleave asunder the pathway of space from infinity into the time constant. And with the moving of the belt of time, the hand of God delivers unto us the mighty scroll containing the thought form for this year. It is the face of a golden clock with the hands pointing to 5 minutes to 12. And at the point of 12, a beautiful Maltese cross springs forth, embellished with 36 magnificent amethysts within each arm of the cross. And the cross is symbolical of the perfection of the presence, bringing unto mankind's attention the fact that the time is short, the fact that the face of the clock is golden, and the hours are likewise golden, the fact that at the apex of 12 stands the transmuting, perfectly balanced cross of the cosmic law. The Maltese cross, which is symbolical of the perfectionment of Saint Germain, the God of freedom, to the earth, containing the 36 symbolical jewels in each arm. The number 144 revealing the archetypes of perfection should speak to all hearts, showing them their appointed sphere and their appointed opportunity, which is the dedication of themselves unto the sun behind the sun. For in reality the golden face of the clock is the face of the sun. And all should understand that the rays of the fiery orb itself, which beautifully inhabits the universe, are tangible ones, affecting the magnetic flux of the earth and of all planetary orbs, assisting the boat of the planet Earth to float through the ocean of space in palatial splendor. a godchild from the heart of God. Have you thought of your planet, of your planetary home, as just that? As a star in the diadem of the solar crown? Have you thought of the beauty and perfection of the heart of your presence as a star in your own world, the star of your bursting individuality? Well, do so then, if you please. For the uniqueness of the identity of each man and woman is correspondingly enhanced by the richness of the power of vision. In the meditations of those who are engaged in the business of meditation in the Far East and throughout other parts of the world, there is often a concentration upon the pranic star doorway. And the opening of the star doorway is a shining, splendorous path through the realm of finiteness into the realm of infinity, the Antakarana of the heart of God, pouring forth and bursting forth into bloom as a flower in consciousness. And with the coming of radiant perfection into view comes a positioning of change in the consciousness. Man, fearful, despised, rejected, and driven from Eden, from those holy pleasures which he once knew, the deriving of his sustenance from the heart of God, into a man almost animal-like, at times in his greediness and grasping for outer principles, is suddenly returned to the Eden of God, to the tree of life, and to the availability of his source, his gentle source. O sweet and beautiful green orb, the snows are falling as a mantle of whiteness upon many parts of the world. The winds are blowing, and in other parts the balm of summer is heard together with the twitter of birds. Beauty and stillness of mind bring to the consciousness the variegation and variety which God has aborning always within that hem of his garment which he lowers into the cup of individualized consciousness as a point of contact with himself. For the formless spirit, so beautiful in its formlessness as the wind that bloweth where it listeth, is wondrous, but scarcely beheld by the consciousness, which requires also the formation of those geometric and progressive forms that reveal to man at last the geometry of God, the essence of the soul, now crystallized into the iceberg of time. Infinity dropping gentle drops upon the earth. The shedding of life's blossoms, and the essence of those blossoms, petal pink with love and hope, and the gentleness of the Spirit, yet so powerfully enfolding the world in a matrix of God's blue lightning and his holy infinite wisdom. O cup of wisdom, thou art the lamp of cosmic knowledge. And every angel, every deva, every Gandharva hears thy voice, the whispering of the winds upon the lute of life, the moving of the branches by the gentle effulgence of the Spirit. Hear now our words. Everything that hinders the expression of thy individual deification hinders the movement of the universe. For by the principle of Archimedes' lever, we are able to move the world, but each individual, as a part of the total complex of God's world magnificence, either holds back the passionate movement of God's planet, of God's evolution, or else contributes to its forward movement. When I spoke long ago upon the hill of Sarnath, my disciples gathered round and listened not unto me, but unto the hum of universal life speaking within me. As an actor in a play, I stood before them then, and formed those gentle lispings and droppings of God's wisdom which comprise the eightfold path of righteousness. But all true religion undefiled is a point of contact with that infinite Spirit which belongs unto thee as thou belongest unto it. Out of the depths of thy givingness, out of the fountain of eternal wisdom, man, bathed, shall be returned to the heart of God, the cleansing of life's wave of cleansing, producing the miracle and the song of the angels and the song of the soul and the celestial raiment. Never the Spirit was born, the Spirit shall cease to be never, dead though the house of it seems. Wise is he who receives the derivation of consolation from the Eternal One, rather than the crassness of the jingle of the streets. Pure are those who are dipped in the eternal fountain of the living Word. Om Mani Padme Hum, sweet song of the ages, the jewel in the heart of the lotus. Wise are those who understand the outreach of the consciousness of the brotherhood in man's heart, in God's heart, posited, anchored, and straight as a shaft of the wind, yet moving ever forward into happiness. Drops of life may be drops of happiness, and the consolation of those bereft of meaning is always required to be the consolation of the Spirit. Those who are without the hearing of God's voice, those who are bereft of seeing the earliest light of the dawn, are those without hope. The silent night of the Spirit whispers unto man. Be consoled by the Comforter, by the passing word of God, delivered as steps leading to the tower, from whence the light of the world is shed. The light of the world, shed from the tower of the heart, is shed from the tower of our heart. Wise are those who know the way of peace and the way of gentleness of spirit. For gentleness of spirit may blow as a peaceful wind or as a hurricane, flailing the heart of the world, and at last in its chastening action, chastening all whom God loves, bringing all whom God loves safely home, as the holy mariner beckons, "Come ye, O my children, come ye, O my children, come ye, O my children." Do you not hear him? Do you not hear his word? Do you not feel the pull of God? As the fires of the sun generate the flux of the world, so does the fire of God's love generate the magnetism of the exertion of his presence upon the soul of man. What matters matter? Spirit evolves, and matter moves forward as spirit moves forward. Light upon the path descends, touching the bosom of the world with the fingers of infinite love. O gentle Mother Earth, thy love mingles with God's love and evokes that sweet incense of cosmic response, which is cosmic repose. For when man rests from his labors, God labors still, and the engines of life will not cease to be, ever. For the words of him who has said, "Destroy ye this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up," is in the mystical experiences involved even in this temple, in which the pantomime of my simultaneous exhortations in the Grand Teton is radiating out, can speak to your hearts and show you the magnificence of the resurrection spiral. You can find here those cosmic ties and infinite inner experiences that will guide you every step of the way home. For each of these experiences is an experience with God, and they do not all come as strung upon the tree of life, lumped into one day, but are spread out, these spiritual experiences, occurring when needed, that the soul may be shepherded and guided, caressed and adored by he who would open the gateway of his heart, as the Pied Piper of Hamelin, to lead the children of the world into the cavernous magnificence, swallowing up death in life, and completing at last the round of human experiences destined to come into manifestation, and directing men to the fountainhead of their consciousness. The creative power of God. Guide, guard, and love God. Love also the creative power that would make of each one of thee a new man in Christ, a truly beloved Son of God, a gentle one of the Spirit, able to summon the most valiant energies, as El Morya would say, and raise your consciousness when necessary out of gentleness, but when unnecessary, remaining quiescent and at rest. The conservation of energy is also a beautiful experience. For when one learns to conserve one's energy, individuals can rest in the paeans of praise generated by the Spirit. They can sit quietly while the whole orchestra of being is creating the soundless sound all around them that magnifies thy kingdom come in man. Open the gates of the temple. Open the gates of God magnificence. O Devas of the sacred fire, those in my band who belong unto our Father, Gandharvas of the heart of the world and of the heart of the eternal God, prepare ye a highway in consciousness that shall become a magnet of fire over even this focus in which the pantomime of my simultaneous transmission is occurring. And everywhere let the great magnet of life draw until men and women shall come as unto their God presence into one place, a spirit of universal concord, and the completeness of their surrender to the beauty, the perfection, and the eternal values of God. I shall leave to Saint Germain and others who shall speak to you the describing of many experiences which may be of great interest unto men and women of this earth. But I want you to remember me tonight for the gentle spirit in which I spoke. For as of old came the wind, and God was not in it. Came the thunder, and God was not in it. Came the rain, and God was not in it. And came at last the still small voice, and God was there. For God is active within, and if at times you do not hear him speak, know and have confidence in heart that God always speaks, that the soundless sound, the music of the spheres, is heard everywhere where there is an ear to hear, where a spiritual ear may open, there God speaks. And in the speaking is the recovery of every divine experience ever captured by the heart of God. And now, because you are attuned with that, captured by you also, will you make it a permanent memory? Then do so. The song of the Gandharvas, of the angels, of the Devas, of the heart of God, is orchestrated by the infinite passion of the universal conductor, of cosmic love. Happy am I, whom you call Gautama, to have brought you this in memory of the Bodhisattvas of the world. My peace I leave with you. In the name of the living Christ flame, peace be upon you through the ages to come, from the year 1972. I thank you. In the gracious name of the entire spirit of the Great White Brotherhood, I, Chananda, of the Indian Council thereof, bring to you the loving greetings of the Brotherhood. To every lonely heart upon the planetary body, to all who feel bereft of their divine contact, to all who feel excluded from the great passions of the divine, I bring greetings and salutations of the Spirit. There is hope for all, and this hope itself is magnificent. The fullness of God's love, the tides of love run long, wide, and deep in our retreat, and they come to you this night, bearing upon their crest the roses of the angelic host. Now man today, quite frankly, are not too concerned with the manifestation of angels. They are not too concerned, in fact, with our manifestation. And there are times that they wonder as to whether they themselves exist. And that is why they pinch themselves. Beloved ones of the great light of God that never fails, the depth of love is concerned with the magnanimity of hearts. The internal sense that is most scientific, whereby the chalice of the heart is strangely endowed with the pulsations of far-off worlds. It is a tragedy that mankind do not more frequently consort with those far-off worlds of the Spirit that can be drawn so nigh, and in the consonance of hearts flood forth unto the world newness of life, a fountain of devotion. And devotion is magnificent, for devotion brings to each individual not only the chalice of his opportunity, but the bubbling joy that can be found in man's explicit understanding that an opportunity exists for him. Somewhere in the heart of God, as in the nave of a church or a sacred place set apart, there is a place for each individual heart. And our brotherhood literally is flooded with a sense of extension that desires to amplify the thoughts of our being and the thoughts of God's being into the world of man, that we may sunder him from those strange concepts that have parted him from God. For no man can really experience the joy of bubbling happiness who does not actually have some sense of a divine contact, at least inwardly. For to deny God is, as it were, to cut oneself off from life and from the land of the living. There are those who profess that they have joy in externalities, in the business of living, that they are happy cheating their neighbors out of their daily bread. But, beloved ones, these are they who are bereft of understanding, and more to be pitied than censured. For they have not yet come to the feet of God, to understand the tender reality of life. Otherwise, they would experience the fullness of that joy which we do, which God has woven into the fabric of our lives as the consummate intelligence and presence of the Eternal One upon the altar of our identity. I am Chinanda of the Great White Brotherhood of the Indian Council, and I extend to you the passions of eternity, the understanding that it is wise to be moved by the divine sea, and to find nestling within the heart of being, even within the heart of the great shell, the beauty and iridescence of the pearl of great price. Your contact with God, your contact with your true self, O magnificent eternal principle, O beautiful fruit upon the tree of life, thou art polished and luscious beyond the dreams of men. though they have not tasted thee, that one day they may. This is sufficient. For even now, as the heart beats, as the surges of the brain receive the inflow and outflow of thoughts, the mind of God is radiating into space, and far-off worlds turning by the movement of his hand are the expression of his love. If he cares for the sparrow, does he not care for thee? But, beloved ones, there are those who have passed the initiation called the obscure night or the dark night of the soul. These understand that even if God cared nothing for them, they still must kindle within themselves, within and upon the altar of being, the flame of love for him and for others. For only then can God be born within them. When they are willing to forsake, to relinquish even the thought of someone's concern for themselves, in the brightness and illumination that God must be born as the Christ spark upon the heart's altar. In the darkest night, the beautiful light appears, for each must be God born and God ordained. Will you understand the meaning of that bubbling fountain of joy that the world feels is a part of the Via Dolorosa? My God, why hast thou forsaken me? As the impassioned plea of one passing through the dark night of the soul portrayed in the writings of St. John of the Cross. Our brotherhood desires to strip mankind of the concept of self-attention, of self-fear, of self-doubt. Man who says, I cannot do it, I cannot, must learn to say, I can, by God's grace, do all things through Christ, who strengtheneth me. And the full fashion and measure of the law is the extension of infinite love into the domain of each individual, lifting that individual and casting him not down into the depths of his own well of despair. Great is the Lord, and greatly to be praised. But can man see himself as God? Nay. Through the sea of selfhood, man drowns and is no more. For self-love will not truly bring you emancipation or the bounty of freedom or the strength for the years ahead. But God's love will, drawing with the power of infinite magnetism into the very fibers of the soul, the strength of eternity does flow. The Indian Council bringeth greetings. Our land, torn recently by war and the sundering of many hearts, is of necessity a land of great distress. Little do the newspapers know, or little have mankind revealed of the searing, biting pain troubling the people of our land. Mighty subcontinent, land of the Lord Mahachohan, enrichening the world with many rishis and sages of El. Our land is torn by struggle and despair. We ask you this night, O ye children of the people, ye children of God scattered abroad, hither and yon, to pray for our land. For we need and require the prayers of the people of all lands, that love and beauty and strength may come to the world, that the world may face its mounting problems, the problems of human destruction that have so long burdened the heart of the world, the problems of insecurity that disturb hearts, the pain that comes even to those of world renown. For uneasy lies the head that wears the crown. And those who rule from a political expediency do not always rule wisely or well. Try, though our brotherhood may, to exhort them to those admonishments which will help the children of mankind everywhere. Try as we may to bring them into harmony with cosmic ideals. They continue the relentless tide of their own egoic aggression upon mankind. And much is the mounting pain to trouble the heart of the mother of the world. Those of us who dwell in the sacred retreats of the brotherhood are not content to merely meld our spirits into God's. Together with God, we are concerned for that separated portion, separated in consciousness and action in the world of form, that has not yet come to identify itself with the vast strengths that are held together as the treasures of heaven in the storehouse of tomorrow, of today, of the moment, of all time. I tell you, in the name of Almighty God, that the great white brotherhood has a strength undreamed of, the control of volcanic forces deep within the heart of the earth, the control of subterranean levels, the control of spatial magnitude, the power to reach out into the universal and to draw forth at will. But we dare not, any more than God himself, to thwart the free will of man, and because humanity have thought wrongly and felt wrongly as products of their own environment, as those enmeshed in the strands of a virulent educational system which is designed to captivate them and direct them amiss, mankind do not, in many cases, find within themselves the right ideals to bring to fruition. Long ago, there were formulated in higher domains such activity from the hand of Mary, the mother of Jesus, as to help alleviate this condition and bring light unto mankind. And this came with the introduction by Maria Montessori of the Montessori system, as it was also envisioned and has been ensouled since by the cosmic brotherhood, extending to the little children of the world some sense of higher dimension, the trigonometric and geometric progression of the cosmic sense that can, if it be pursued together with those spiritual endeavors of the Spirit which we desire to bring to mankind, result in an entirely different product for the new age that is to come. The educational systems of the world, while they leave much to be desired, must of necessity be worked with, and the Brotherhood continues to maintain envoys in the educational courts of the world. But yet, in our heart and the hearts of light which are with us, is a continual visualization of progress toward the light and the purposes of heaven for mankind. O beloved ones, above all I urge upon you then this night that you shed the skin, the horrible snake skin of discouragement, and cast it to the winds. Consume it in the violet transmuting flame if you are able. and denude yourself of everything that is not joy and hope and peace. For born out of joy and hope and peace and out of the Spirit most holy comes the sense of man's real identity, the fashion of cosmic times that bypasses all of the cycles of men's lives that have gone on before, and produces the miracle of cosmic devotion within the crucible of mankind's experience, leading him at last into those holy and cosmic passions out of which is born a Christ in the Garden of Gethsemane, able then to extend his hands, and even facing the very extinction of his life from a momentary standpoint, to cry out, "Not my will, but thine be done. O my Father, if it be thy will, let this cup pass from me." So let men understand that there is a strand of infinity caught in this concept, the concept of man's giving of himself unto God in such a fashion as is calculated to assure an enduring memorial to his existence, which otherwise would be snuffed out as the individuality of man would cease to be. For it is a changeable creature, fashioned in this manner and in that manner, that does not of necessity endure at all with the ages, or even in many cases with a lifetime or a segment of a lifetime. For the changeableness of human nature is often inclined to go first east and then west and then north and then south, so that man may be said to cover all the cardinal points of the compass without ever realizing the center thereof, the sole pole star of his true identity. This is anchored in God. It is monadic in expression. And he who understands the power of the monad, he who understands the meaning of the monadic expression in truth and in life, will always be found at the front lines of cosmic endeavor, ready to give his all for cosmic causes, and not expecting to receive in return the moon, the sun, and the stars. We need men and women of dedication, now more than ever before, because the fruit of divine endeavors is coming now into action to produce a new world. And at the same time, many scummy forces are surfacing. The dross is coming to the surface to be skimmed off. The gold is being refined, and the purity of the immortal thoughts of God are radiating out into the world to those who are able to receive them. These are the fashion of the cosmos. Have you thought to wear a decoration, ladies, in your hair that is a cosmic one? Have you thought, O gentlemen of God, what it means to wear upon your heart the garments of spiritual adornment, to cover the nakedness of being, the weaknesses and the defenses of men, and bring men at last to the point where they will see their hidden strengths as belonging unto God, as divinely ordained, and their human weaknesses as spawned from the darkened powers of the minds of men in reverse gear. Move forward then into the light of your presence. Rise upward then in the strength of 10,000 suns. Behold the newness of life that is before you as your own. For together there is strength, and yet in oneness there is greater strength. For the oneness is one of spirit, and the togetherness of the flesh may not endure, except it be cemented with the power of the eternal love of spirit. I, Chinanda, this night have left a great deal to be said, and yet I have spoken much. I have left other parts of the divine message for other masters who will follow to speak. I pray that you will receive the entire ensemble as it is given. For then the whole, reminiscent of a jigsaw puzzle, will present itself to you as a dream of God for the forthcoming year. The hopes of God that encounter the tragedies of men and say, I am the way, I am the truth, and I am the life. Out of this dawning joy of the Spirit and the nature of the eternal will come into the realm of each man's mind and heart, as a coal from the altar of heaven, the thoughts that capture the future thoughts of God, and render all things possible with man below as with God above. The magical alchemical properties of the spiritual fires from the altars of heaven, the joy of the angels, the secret and sacred longing of the heart of both man and God are served as humanity gathers under the wings of cosmic protection to perform those works perforce of which Jesus spoke, saying, Greater works shall ye do, because I go unto my Father. Send forth now, O children of the light, thy love unto thy God. Send forth now, O children of the light, thy love unto the brotherhood. Send forth now, O children of the light, thy love unto all humanity. Exclude none, the murderer and the dark ones as well, for this also is the eternal love of God that is sent unto all for their redemption. And the lambs also that are strayed from the fold shall be found and brought back wherever possible. For God's love is a love in action beyond the ken of mortal mind. It is deeper than the sea, higher than the highest star, and wider than the widest portions of cosmos. Infinity opens its mouth unto the finite realm and bids it welcome into infinity. Come, ye children of one Father, gather then in the name of the Spirit of the great white brotherhood with all men, children of love, light, and belief that is strengthened into faith, into action, into the fullness of the completion of the divine plan. By the trowel of the master mason is builded now the grand temple of the Orient. Behold the light that rests as a crown upon the pyramid of lives. For out of the east have I spoken, and out of the east I have come, and to the east I shall return. I am Chananda, a servant of God and of you all. May the mantle of God's blessedness rest upon your heart and forever continue to resound within you as the echo of infinity into the finite realm. Peace abounds, peace rises, and peace is in the heart of the living God. I thank you